She feels desire, but it doesn't wake up when you're around. Not because you're unattractive, but because your presence doesn't challenge her. You show up soft, careful, too available, and wonder why she stays cold. But women don't crave comfort. They crave certainty. So here's the better question. What if it's not her disinterest, but your lack of depth she's responding to? Part 1. She doesn't want sex with weak men and you can't fake strength. Let's tear off the mask. Most men aren't being rejected for sex. They're being rejected for the energy behind the ask. She's not saying no to the act. She's saying no to the man. Not because he's unattractive. Not because she's not ready. But because deep down, she doesn't feel safe handing over her body to someone who hasn't even mastered his own. A woman doesn't fantasize about a man who tiptoes around his desires. She craves the man whose presence alone speaks louder than flirtation. The one whose energy makes her heart beat faster, not because he begged for attention, but because he walks in certainty, like he knows who he is and doesn't apologize for it. Let me tell you a story. There was a man named Elijah. Polite, thoughtful, the definition of a good guy. He went on 5 dates with a woman named Kara. Opened doors, paid every bill, listened attentively, never pushed, never stared too long, always respectful, always nice. One night after dinner, he looked at her and asked gently, "Would it be okay if I kissed you?" She paused, smiled politely, said, "I'm not quite there yet," and something shifted. The next week, she stopped replying. 2 weeks later, she was seeing someone else, a guy named Jordan, who didn't ask permission. He looked at her once with the kind of gaze that didn't beg. It declared he wasn't reckless. He wasn't rude. He was just sure of himself. And she melted. Elijah sat alone weeks later thinking, I was so good to her. What did I do wrong? But he never understood. She didn't reject him. She rejected his lack of power. When your energy is soaked in uncertainty, when your body language whispers, "Please like me," when your voice is careful, calculated, overcorrected, she feels it, not with her logic, but with her body. Because female desire isn't born in her mind. It rises from her nervous system. And if you radiate anxiety, hesitation, self-doubt, she shuts down. Not out of cruelty, but out of instinct. She cannot surrender to a man who hasn't yet claimed himself. You can say the right things. You can act like a gentleman. But if underneath all of it is fear, she will know. You can't fake strength. You have to become it. And here's where most men confuse everything. They think being nice is a mating strategy. That politeness will turn into passion. That patience is the path to physical closeness. But here's what she feels instead. This man wants me to decide everything. He's waiting for me to make the first move. He's unsure, so I have to lead. And that's exhausting. A woman doesn't desire the man she feels she must carry emotionally. She craves the man she can fall into. The one who makes her feel less in control, not because he forces her, but because his calm certainty lets her finally relax. So stop trying to be chosen. Stop overcorrecting. Stop walking on eggshells around your own desire. Your softness isn't the problem. Your self-doubt is. When your energy says, I hope she wants me, she won't. But when your presence says, I'm already full with or without her, that's when her desire awakens. Because she doesn't want sex with a weak man. She wants to surrender to a man who doesn't need her to feel strong because he already is. Part 2. Your sexual energy is the language she actually hears. You speak. She listens, but not with her ears. She listens with her body. Before a single word escapes your mouth, she's already felt you. Your posture, your gaze, the tension in your shoulders. the rhythm of your breath, they all speak, louder than compliments, louder than clever lines. You can memorize all the right things to say, read every book on seduction, learn every rule of masculine, feminine polarity. But if your body says, I'm nervous, if your energy says, I need her to like me, she hears it like a silent alarm, and her desire shuts down before it ever ignites. Not because she doesn't find you interesting, but because she doesn't feel you. A woman responds to presence, not perfection. She doesn't crave words, she craves depth. And that depth is carried by your sexual energy. But here's where so many men go wrong. They repress it. They hide it behind politeness, behind political correctness, behind layers of respect that are more about fear than honor. They silence their masculine fire and wonder why women keep seeing them as just a friend. Let me tell you a story. Noah wasn't ugly. He wasn't boring. He was smart, funny, emotionally available. But every woman he liked saw him as safe, sweet, and somehow forgettable. Until one evening, a woman named Sienna pulled him aside and said quietly, "You're great, but it always feels like you're holding something back, like you're not fully here." That hit him, because deep down, he knew she was right. He had always been afraid of expressing desire, not because he didn't feel it, but because he didn't want to be that guy, the pushy one, the creepy one, the one women warned their friends about. So he overcorrected. He became harmless, and in doing so, he became invisible. What Sienna sensed wasn't a lack of charm, it was a lack of charge. Because real desire isn't aggressive. It's not loud or frantic. It's steady, warm, unapologetic. It doesn't chase. It radiates. Masculine energy, when mature, doesn't ask to be received. It simply shows up and is felt. That's why the man who is fully in his body, who isn't ashamed of wanting her, but also doesn't need her, becomes magnetic. He doesn't have to say, "I'm attracted to you." She already knows. And more importantly, she feels safe feeling it back. It's not about being sexual in action. It's about being embodied in intention. Desire that is restrained but real, contained but not denied. That's where Stoicism becomes your compass. Not to numb yourself, but to master yourself. Because a man who knows how to hold his desire without leaking it, who doesn't apologize for it, but doesn't throw it around, that man is rare. That man is remembered. So the next time you're near her, forget the script. Forget the line. Forget the strategy. Be still. Be honest. Let your presence speak for you. If she feels something rise inside her just because you're there, because your energy touches her without needing to touch her, you've already said more than words ever could. She doesn't need to be convinced. She needs to be moved. And your sexual energy, when fully owned, is the quiet force that moves her. Part 3. Stop asking permission and start leading with silent boldness. There's a moment that kills desire, not with a slap, but with a whisper. It's when a man looks at her, full of hesitation, and says, "Can I kiss you?" He means well. He wants to be respectful. He's trying not to cross a line. But what she hears isn't respect. What she feels is doubt, uncertainty, a subtle, sinking sense that this man isn't leading, he's asking to be led. That's the silent death of attraction. Because here's the truth, no one dares to say. If you have to ask, she's already second-guessing. Not because she didn't want it, but because your hesitation planted uncertainty in a space that was once alive with tension. Women don't want to be forced. They want to be moved. And to be moved, they need to feel the steady, centered presence of a man who knows what he's doing, not because he's memorized a script, but because his body and mind are in alignment. Leadership and intimacy isn't about control. It's about clarity. It's about reading the moment, not with words, but with awareness. It's feeling the pace of her breathing, the softness of her voice, the dilation of her pupils. And instead of asking, you move forward with presence, watching for the moment she breathes you in instead of backing away. That's the language women understand. It's not about aggression. It's about certainty. Let me tell you what happened to Luca. He had been seeing Ava for a few weeks. The chemistry was there, or so he thought. They laughed, touched arms, leaned in close, and she never pulled away. But every time things got quiet, he filled the space with more talking. And when he finally felt ready to kiss her, he paused, smiled, and asked, "Do you want to?" Ava blinked. She smiled, hesitated, and said, "Let's wait a little." In truth, she had wanted to right before he asked. But the moment broke, the frame collapsed. And what once felt electric now felt awkward. Luca didn't know he'd just committed one of the most common silent errors men make. He handed over the lead, and with it, the weight of emotional responsibility. You see, when you ask a woman to guide the moment, you're asking her to do the emotional, heavy lifting. And that's not sexy, it's exhausting. What she craves is to feel your calm decisiveness. Not recklessness, not pushiness. Just a man who doesn't need to be told when the moment is right because he feels it. This is where silent boldness matters. The kind of boldness that doesn't require approval. The kind that moves with intention, yet stays open to correction. You move forward, she responds. If she leans in, the moment grows. If she resists, you don't collapse, you pause, stay calm, and return to presence. That's true masculine leadership, not insisting, not withdrawing, just holding the frame. Because when you ask her to lead, she feels like the adult. When you lead with silent confidence, she gets to surrender without fear. And that's when desire awakens. Not because you were smooth, but because you were certain. Women don't want to navigate your nervousness. They want to feel your groundedness. So stop asking. Stop waiting for green lights. Start listening with your eyes, your body, your breath. Because when you lead without forcing, when you act without begging, when you move without asking, that's when she follows without needing to know why. And that's when the moment becomes unforgettable. Part 4. The man who doesn't react becomes the one she can't control. She doesn't test you with words. She tests you with silence. The message she left unread. The story she posted an hour after you texted. The "I'm just tired tonight," when plans were already set. Most men react. They spiral into anxiety, send another message, ask if something's wrong, analyze every signal like a desperate codebreaker. But every time you chase her uncertainty, you give her something far more dangerous than attention. You give her control. And nothing kills attraction like a man who's easily moved. Women don't consciously think, "Let me test his emotional strength." But emotionally, instinctively, they do. Because before they can trust you with their body, they need to feel you're solid in your being. Let me tell you about Leo. He had just started seeing a woman named Marissa. She was witty, beautiful, confident, and unpredictable. Some days, she flooded him with affection. Other days, she was distant, vague, cold. At first, Leo responded to every shift. When she pulled away, he asked more questions. When she delayed replies, he tried harder. And every time he did, something in her pulled further away. Until one day, he stopped. Not out of resentment, but because something clicked. He realized he was letting her dictate his emotional weather. So, the next time she went quiet, he stayed still. Not passive, present. He focused on his own day, trained, built, created, slept well, laughed with friends. He didn't abandon her, he just stopped orbiting her. And then something strange happened. She returned. Not with apologies, but with interest, curiosity, a deeper kind of desire, because she felt it. That shift, the space where she used to manipulate emotion, had turned into stillness. And in that stillness, she felt something she hadn't before: respect. Women don't chase men they control. They chase men they can't quite pin down. The moment you stop reacting, you become different. You become unfamiliar. And unfamiliar is magnetic. A man who doesn't flinch at coldness, who doesn't collapse when ignored, who isn't triggered by the silent treatments or mood swings that man is rare. And more than rare, he's powerful. Because she realizes something deep. You're not driven by her. You're driven by purpose. And the moment she senses that, her curiosity flips. Why doesn't he need my validation? Why isn't he chasing me like everyone else? Who is this man that can sit in silence and still feel complete? That's when the game ends and real connection begins. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're not playing at all. You're just being rooted, unshaken, focused. And in that state, you radiate something every woman feels but can't explain. Emotional gravity. Not drama, not distance, just depth. So the next time she pulls away, don't panic. Don't punish. Don't perform. Pause. Breathe. Observe. Because the man who reacts becomes predictable. And the man she can predict, she can control. But the man who stays still, who keeps building even when she turns, that man becomes unforgettable. Part 5. Her fantasy isn't about you. It's about how she feels around you. Most men spend their lives trying to become the kind of man a woman would want. They chase aesthetics, build muscles, read pickup lines, accumulate status. But still, the women they want don't seem to respond, at least, not the way they imagined. Because here's the quiet truth no one tells you. She's not attracted to you. She's attracted to how she feels when she's around you. You are not the fantasy. The feeling you give her, that's the fantasy. It's not about your car, your jawline, or your resume. It's about whether, in your presence, she feels more alive, more seen, more connected to something primal, something she can't quite name but doesn't want to lose. You can be objectively better than the last guy, smarter, kinder, more successful, and she'll still choose him over you if he stirred something in her that you didn't. Let me show you what I mean. There was a man named Julian. Well-dressed, intelligent, respectful, stable. He planned perfect dates, made her feel safe, always said the right thing. And every woman he dated would say the same thing. You're amazing, but something's missing. He couldn't understand it. He was doing everything right. Then one day, after another quiet rejection, he asked a woman directly, "What do you actually want in a man?" She paused, looked down, then said softly, "I want to feel something. I don't want to think it's right. I want to feel it's right. With you, I feel safe but not shaken." That night, everything changed for Julian. He realized he was showing up as a checklist, not as an experience. Because women don't remember the man who had it all. They remember the man who made them feel something they couldn't explain. Your strength means nothing if she feels numb next to you. Your kindness is empty if it doesn't awaken anything. Your attention is forgettable if it doesn't pull her inward. She doesn't want to observe you. She wants to feel herself come alive in your company. That's what she fantasizes about. Not dominance, not danger, but the subtle electricity of being around a man who's deeply rooted, whose energy makes her heart skip, even in silence. And here's the paradox. The more you try to impress her, the less she feels. Because performance kills presence. And presence, real, grounded, calm, is what gives her access to her own fantasy. It's not your story she wants to escape into. It's her own. And you're either the mirror or the noise. So ask yourself, when she's around you, does she feel safe enough to feel deeply? Does your presence invite her to drop the mask? Or does it make her analyze and retreat? Are you giving her space to feel herself? Or just asking her to validate you? The men she can't stop thinking about, it's not because they had it all. It's because they made her feel something rare. Something not bought, not forced, not scripted. Just real. You are not the fantasy, brother. You are the fire that makes the dream burn brighter. But only if you stop trying to be impressive and start being present. Because in the end, she won't remember your achievements. She'll remember how she felt when you entered the room. And if you never made her feel anything at all, then in her story, you were never really there. Part 6. The Desire Mirror. Why she craves a man who desires life, not just her. She doesn't want to be your escape. Not from boredom. Not from loneliness. Not from the weight of your unlived dreams. Because when a man desires a woman more than he desires his own life, something inside her withdraws. Not out of pride, but instinct. A woman's deepest desire is to be chosen, yes, but not by a man who has nothing else to live for. She wants to be part of a story that was already burning before she entered. That's the desire mirror. She reflects back to you what you reflect into life itself. If your hunger is only for her, she feels it, and it suffocates her. But if your hunger is for growth, purpose, mastery, if your soul burns for something bigger than attention, she feels that too. And that draws her in. Let me tell you about a man named Arlen. He used to put women at the center of everything. He planned his days around dates, measured his worth by responses. His energy shifted based on how much affection he received. At first, women liked the attention, but eventually, they pulled away. "Something's off," they'd say. "You're too into me too soon." He couldn't understand. Isn't that what women want? Until one woman said it plainly. "I don't want to be your purpose. I want to witness it." That broke something, but it also built something else. Arlen turned inward. He started doing things that had nothing to do with impressing women. He read because it stretched his mind. He trained because it built discipline. He explored because he loved discovering new things, not because he needed content for a dating profile. And slowly, women began showing up again. But this time, they stayed. Because they saw something different. Not a man who needed them to feel alive, but a man who already was. The fire wasn't aimed at them. It was radiating from within. This is what most men miss. The more you chase women, the less they desire you. But the more you chase your becoming, the more they wonder who you are. Because desire isn't earned by attention. It's awakened by alignment. When you walk into a room and your energy says, "I'm building something bigger than myself," you become unforgettable. Not because you beg to be seen, but because your life force could not be ignored. She wants to feel that. Not because you made her the center, but because you made her curious. What kind of man is so full he doesn't need me but still chooses me? That's the man she dreams of. Not the one begging to be loved. The one who already loves life so much. Being with him feels like being close to the sun. So let her see your passion. Let her feel your mission. Let her orbit your gravity, not because you trapped her there, but because your trajectory is so real, so rare, she doesn't want to look away. Because in the end, the man who desires life more than he desires her becomes the man she desires most. And that is the mirror she never knew she needed. Final reflections and your 7-day Stoic Desire Challenge. You thought she rejected you, but she didn't. She rejected the man who was chasing not out of confidence, but out of emptiness. The version of you that needed her approval just to feel alive. Now you see what she truly responds to. Not effort, not logic, not perfect timing, but energy. The kind that's still when tested. The kind that walks in without needing to be noticed. The kind that builds a life so full she's not your purpose, but she wants to be part of it. That's what she feels. That's what moves her. Not your words, not your plans, your presence. So this week, don't chase her attention. Chase your stillness. When she's quiet, you stay calm. When she pulls away, you don't collapse, you expand. Walk into the room like you were born there, not to perform, not to impress, but because you belong to yourself. Do something you love with no intention of being seen. Hold eye contact, not to seduce, but to ground yourself. Go one full day without asking for a single ounce of validation. Then ask yourself honestly, if women didn't exist, would your life still feel full? Because that's where your power begins. When you stop living for her response and start living from your truth. Desire her if you must, but desire life more. When you do that, she'll feel it, and she'll move toward it on her own. Not because you asked, but because she couldn't stay away. If this message spoke to something in you, don't just keep it. Like this video if even one sentence hit where it needed to. Subscribe if you're building yourself quietly, without begging for the world's applause. And drop a comment if you've ever chased, only to realize you were the one worth being chased all along. This is Petals of Stoicism, where men don't react, they rise.